Hi, I am Osman. I'm a master level energy healer with telepathic capabilities, specializing in terminal illnesses and critical care recovery. I'm also an advanced level yoga and meditation teacher. Please be sure to visit my website, yogawellness786.com, for more information on our services and contact information. Please also remember our therapies are all natural based and not a replacement for medical treatment. If you have a medical condition, be sure to consult with a qualified and licensed medical practitioner in your locality. So I wanted to discuss clairvoyance from a yoga and meditation perspective. So yes, there are many clairvoyant people, and that is a special field which is separate from the yoga and meditation sciences, and is a highly professional field where I have to say I have the utmost respect for those who are in that field. But yoga and meditation, we say, touches on that capability. It's not specialized in it. It's just that it's one of the side effects of certain advanced levels that one attains, that one enters into this ability of clairvoyance by default especially when the third eye completely opens. And when that completely opens and one has control over its opening and learns how to open and close it at will, so when you meet with people and you view them from your third eye, you will be able to see everything about that person, about his past and his future. So to know things about the past is like amazing, that you know things about it, and you can sound very professional, that and you have like some mystic capability. But to know about the future is it's not the same, because a lot of people, they go through ups and downs in life, and you're going to meet people that's going to imminently die, right? And you're going to see how they're going to die, and the things that you see, these things cannot be prevented or avoided, because they are things that are written down that cannot be changed, especially when it comes to death. When it comes to death, people normally are dying in the time that was predetermined. So it is something that is highly, debatable topic. Many people wants to debate it, and I have all the respect for them, right? Okay, we can. But from my experience and my knowledge and my understanding, and I went through various stages of this understanding, very difficult, to accept. But I've seen and I've come to the conclusion time and again, you have to also understand I'm on an advanced level, and I can see things beyond what regular people can see, right? And from my opinion and my perspective, I would say that there's only one way to change the time and date of your death, and it's not easy to extend it, but there is some possibilities that one could, especially with the usage of yoga and meditation science. And so the one way that you can shorten it, or die quicker than your allocated time, is through suicide, because suicide is something unnatural. But accidents and getting shot and a child passing away in a collision and so forth, it was the time for that person to go, right? And this is something that I'm convinced about, or I have a conviction, about this belief. I have no doubt, in this, from my knowledge, experience, and understanding, right? And I went very deep into the subject matter, and I've tested it many times as well. And I'm brave enough to enter into situations that are not irresponsible, but within the ambit of my duties. I had certain abilities and capabilities in my much younger life. In business, sales was a very important component of it, And I went into areas that, when I was in South Africa, to very dangerous, violence-ridden areas where there was unrest in that time in those areas, and there were army vehicles parked outside those camps or those areas or those localities or those townships or those suburbs, and the army themselves were afraid to go in because it was, it was open automatic gunfire, in there. And if someone like me going with a little midget car and struggling, in business at that time, went in to sell photocopiers, to the schools and the businesses that were there because no one else was able to service them. So I had a lot of business that way, and I went in because it was an area that I didn't choose on my own. It was allocated to me, and I managed to get the job in this company if I was prepared to accept the area, right? And I had a family to support, and I didn't want to be unemployed. Between being unemployed, I'd rather be working. And I justified it to myself saying that if I died working and trying to support my family, and I didn't want to stay at home and be unemployed and not support. I feel more honor that I died trying to support my family. And I had a deep conviction because I had deep knowledge of the yoga sciences and religious sciences, both the religion and the yoga sciences. I believe very strongly that it's not possible for me to die before my time, right? And I went in and people were surprised. Even later on when I became successful, I went to areas selling properties and houses in all kinds of areas, right? In good areas, bad areas, violence-ridden areas, and where your car is guaranteed to be hijacked. If you go in, they're going to hold a gun to your head and take your car. And I went with very expensive vehicles, right? Vehicles that are more expensive than what above average people could afford, in houses more expensive than above average person's house, right? Professionals and doctors, the type of houses that they could afford. I was able to own vehicles that were much more expensive than that, and I went with that type of vehicles into these areas, and nothing happened to me, right? Because I was doing it in the course of my duty, and I didn't have any weapons. I never carried a gun, a knife, nothing, right? No weapons. And I went in there and nothing happened to me, and I wasn't killed, and I'm still alive, and also I wasn't robbed, right? So people used to be surprised that I'm coming, and there were some instances where I was surrounded, but I never showed fear because I know that that I will not die before my time. I was convinced of it. And one of the convictions came from an incident earlier in my life. So relating to clairvoyance in the yogic sciences and being able to see the future, I'm trying to explain that you're going to see certain things that's destined to happen. It's like almost impossible to change it. Not that it's impossible, almost, right? So I don't know how one can change, the time of death, except from those who have very deep, religious faith, and they pray, and their prayer. I know of some people whose prayer, was answered, right? There were, actual incidents that happened where the person passed away and returned back, not after a long time. I mean, almost, was able to get resuscitated and was not expected to live, and came back and lived, and explained what happened, and it could be their imagination, but they did die and they came back to life, right? And they were expected to die at that time. And so what actually happened in the incident, I was, I think, 19 years old at the time, and a student, and we decided to go partying that night, and we're having drinks, of course, DUI, driving under the influence, right? So I didn't want to drive because I newly had my driver's license, at that time, and there was someone else who was more competent in driving, and always, if someone was more competent, I let them. It was my vehicle, but I let the person drive it. And we were driving like a relatively high speed, not a very high speed, right? A relatively high speed, probably around 65 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour or so, right? Or 120 kilometers an hour, around that. But in a local area, not in a freeway, not in a place where, in a place where the speed limit is highly restricted. And it was on a mountainous area, and there was a hairpin bend that came up unexpectedly. Of course, if you're in a mountainous area, you should expect hairpin bends, but it came up unexpectedly, and the person who was driving could not negotiate it, lost control, and the vehicle slid off the road, and you were going to fall, roll down the mountain, because we were on the higher part of the mountain, and it was supposed to roll down, and if it rolled down, guaranteed death. So when it lost control and it flipped, and we know we are going to go down the mountain now. So I just went silent, because I prepared myself that I know this is where I'm going to die, because there's no way to survive, that type of fall. But it so happened, like in some unbelievable movies, at that point where the vehicle went off the road and about to start rolling down, started, to go down, at that particular point and spot, there was a huge boulder, big enough to be able to stop a vehicle at 120 kilometers hour from, going down. And it absorbed the force of it. And even that impact should have killed us, right? The impact alone. So what had actually happened is, the person, I was sitting on the passenger side. It was a pickup vehicle, so we were all three sitting in front. It was the olden days vehicle where three people could sit. It was a long seat, right? So the person was driving, he put his hand out, and the vehicle slid on the tarmac on the road before it flipped, right? So his hand was caught under the vehicle. He had third-degree damage to his skin, right? The skin completely lost it in his right hand. And the person was sitting in the center. The steering wheel was the olden day, large steering wheel for the pickup. So he went forward, and he cracked his ribs, because his ribs hit the steering wheel. And I went forward, and my forehead hit the dashboard, right? And hit it fully, and but nothing happened to me. I had no injuries. So and it so happened it was a deserted, lonely road. Someone saw that happen, and they came to our rescue. And of course, they pulled us out through the windows, because the doors were jammed, and we were all pulled out of the vehicle, and an ambulance was called. We were taken to hospital, and I was fine. They checked me. I had zero injuries. I just was in shock, and I had no concussion. They took x-rays as well, and they found there's nothing wrong with me. Nothing happened to me. And I reflected, because till this day I remember that moment, right? And in addition to that, there were so many other moments that I could have died at least a handful of times, right? Guaranteed I could have died. I was going, later on I could afford high-speed vehicles, traveling at over 100 miles per hour, 120 miles per hour, like 250, 260 kilometers an hour. And I could have very easily flipped my vehicle, or one small slip, and there's no survival, right? And nothing of the sort happened. Of course, it was irresponsible for me to drive at that speeds, but I was alone, and didn't have anyone with me. And I mean, it's not a justification, to be irresponsible, because I could kill other innocent people on the road, right, in an accident, if something went wrong. But I used to love, high speed, and I was able to control my vehicles, and I had them very well maintained with tires for high speed and for all road conditions. And Not that I'm trying to justify it, but there were incidents when things happened and things could have went wrong, and it didn't. There were objects in the road that came flying towards me, and I came out without any major damage, and where I didn't need to spend money, for any damage, that could have happened. And people even attempted, because I lived in a highly violent country where people lives meant nothing, and people get robbed and shot at all, at any time. None of those things happen. Driving into dangerous areas, people coming into your homes, robbing you, kidnapping your children. All these things happened to me, but they were all unharmed, and my children to this day did not know that they were kidnapped. And I didn't tell them this when we were held up in our homes, and they were took my children and held them for ransom until I paid. And all these things happened, but nothing happened to me. And not that I'm trying to justify, from one person's, it could be I was just damn lucky, right? And coincidences, in a row, and the luck is going to eventually wear out. But I went into, highly risky situations, convinced that I will not die before my time, right? And if it's my time to die, no one can stop it. No matter how safe I am, I can lock myself in the most safest environment and close everything and seal myself off. If it's my time to go, there will be some way or the other that I'm going to go, right? So when one opens up the clairvoyant ability, especially, it is not something you are willing to do or want to do or don't want to happen. It's going to happen. And when it opens, you're going to have this knowledge, and it becomes very difficult to explain to the person that you know something negative, and a lot of things you start to know about the future. You have to hold yourself very often, from a advanced yoga aspirant's point of view. I met many people, who experience these things, and I myself experienced some of the things, right, as well. I didn't go and mention it because it's very sensitive information, and it can cause major disruptions, in the relationship, with that person. By you mentioning such seriously negative things that's going to happen, and when it happens, they're going to turn around and say that you cursed them, that that there's some magic power that you have, you're a wizard, and you're cursing them. So from a yoga meditation perspective, when one advances to this stage, and even when you get a feeling and intuition, you can't go around saying that I feel something bad's going to happen to you and so forth. You can just say, be careful always, take care of yourself, take precautions always. And you can't out of the blue start talking about these things as well. It'll be something that you naturally say, on a regular basis. But it becomes very difficult, and the only way that you can deal with this clairvoyant capability, in being able to know the future, of people is not to mention it, unless you find a tactical way to present it, which I can't think of how that's going to be possible. The best is just be silent about it, and you have to learn the discipline, and you gain the discipline because your intuition and your knowledge level and your intelligence capacity is also exponentially high. You'll be able to have the reserve, at that time. It's not going to be difficult. You will not be controlled by your emotions, because you will have control of your mind and your lower the average intelligence. You will have superior intelligence, and you will have that wisdom at that stage. So clairvoyance from that perspective is not the same clairvoyance as those who practice as clairvoyance. These people trained under a teacher, and there's rules and regulations, and they understand how to do this, and they set up practice as a clairvoyant. And once you have this ability from yoga meditation, you can't just simply set up a practice as a clairvoyant, because this is a very deep science. You have to be trained under a professional, and have to learn certain rules and regulations, in this field, the do's and don'ts especially. And you can't just like wing it and just start saying, what you can read, because it's not something, that there may be some repercussions that you are not aware of. And I'm careful, not to go into those levels. And also when you can communicate with the close family members that passed away for people, and you can't tell them that this person said this and this person said that, unless that is your field and you specialized in that, then they expect you, they will respect that you have that capability. But you can't out of the blue start talking these things and reading people's palms and using your intuition, and people start getting afraid of you, and tarot card readers. So these are people who have this gift, or that is their destiny to do that. That is their work. You have been given your duty and your work. Maybe you want to change it later, that's up to you. But take things carefully and in your stride. Don't just start blurting out things when these things, start awakening in you. Be very careful and try to be reserved and, not mention it until you've done more research and spoken to other professionals who have that capability and now who are professional in that field. So that's my take on clairvoyance from a yoga meditation point of view. And hopefully you advance to those levels and beyond, in your journey and progression. And without proper guidance, you will not make sufficient progress. You need, the guidance of someone who is qualified teacher on the advanced levels. Like myself, I'm also an advanced level yoga and meditation teacher. So I can guide you on it. Not that I have knowledge of everything, but like for example, in this field, I will tell you, go to the relevant expert or the relevant, this thing. Even myself as an energy healer, I went for training, as an energy healer. And also I am going for further trainings on, communicating with spirit entities and crystals and, so forth. My knowledge on crystals is weak. I haven't, spent, I know a little bit about it, but I haven't spent, dedicated and doing courses, certification, internationally accredited certification courses, in the spirituality field, which are respected, bodies that are internationally respected with international accreditation. I do courses that way before I can decide to communicate on it, right? So even with the energy healing, I've advanced myself through highly competent teachers, and honed the years in which I started these practices. They went international accreditations, they went international accreditation as a yoga teacher and so forth. We just learned it from teachers, and it was taught informally. You have to remember, I'm born in the 1960s, right? So we are coming from, I think, 2 generations before, right? And the world is changing, but I'm still, going and joining with accreditation bodies and so forth, but reputable bodies. So I found that Harvard University also offers certification in yoga science, right? They have yoga certification course, and I mean, I'm teaching it and I'm practicing it for decades, but I'm open to take that on. It's on my list of courses to do, in addition with my other courses, and I'm always, furthering my studies and my knowledge on an ongoing basis. So I'm not just relying on what I experience and what I see. I always continue. I believe in ongoing education and knowledge, even in nutrition science and so forth. I'm always seeing what are the latest, published journal information, and what is accepted currently by accredited organizations and institutions. And also, being an energy healer, I don't exceed the bounds of my field, where I am offering alternative solutions to medical science. I don't do that. I always advise all my patients that they must first seek medical attention before coming to me, And where that fails and where they need additional, or they want to take it in conjunction or as a complementary service, that is okay. Yes, I've had a lot of success where, and usually people don't come to people like me when without first exhausting all the normal avenues. So they only come to me after they've failed, all other medical treatments and also all other energy healers and so forth. And usually they coming to me as a last resort. And I'm having great success with that, but I'm not going out claiming that don't go for medic, don't waste your time with this thing, because this is irresponsible, right? Because according to science, energy healing, it has a calming effect and has an effect of reducing cortisol levels, or the stress hormone, and as a result improves your chance and capability of combating or managing illnesses, right? Because stress is a major contributor towards illnesses, and if something can reduce that, so it gives your body a higher chance. And I always tell all my patients, it's not me, it is just me using a tool to reduce certain markers, which gives the body a chance. When they've come to me, the patient comes to means he wants to live. And that is the primary factor in helping him to overcome his illness, that he wants, he's got that drive, he's got that urge to fight what he has. That positive mindset is 80% of the battle, in my opinion. Yes, I offer all these things. So coming back to, the clairvoyance capability and so forth, if you are advancing and you start to experience, certain mystical capabilities and capacities, be careful before you start speaking about it, because you may also be institutionalized, because people will think you are schizophrenic, and you are seeing things and you are hearing voices and so forth, and you can become institutional, and it is a ground for becoming institutionalized. So if you have a competitor or a partner who wants to get rid of you in your business, you're going to give him reason, and a logical reason, and you will be institutionalized, and you will take over people will take over your company, right? You will lose everything, or you will lose the respect of people. People will think something is wrong with you, right? Be careful, because we're living in a society. You have to learn to adapt and blend in, with society, and understand what is normal and what is not normal. And mystical capabilities is not normal, right? So don't talk too much. Yes, I'm discussing this in the videos because I am a teacher for decades, and I understand what are the advanced levels, and I'm giving advice on people who may not hear this type of advice, in remote areas or areas, because there are not many people with that amount of experience and depth and width and breadth of knowledge, and I'm fortunate to have had a wide ambit of knowledge. Not that I'm an expert, I feel I know nothing. It's just that the little that I know, and there's a lot of things over the years, due to the time factor, that I'm in, that I want to share, and I feel that it's going to add value, because we're here to add value to society and give our 2 cents worth, and also there are much more advanced people in this field, and they are probably struggling with something small, and maybe something that I said is going to spark a solution to them. So I hope this helps you, and remember to take care of yourself always.